Welcome to the Curious Life podcast. I am so excited to be talking with you today. Chef Tzarina, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is like the subject that I'm always so eager to talk about. So I feel really grateful for you having me on.
Oh, well, the feeling is mutual, and we've been trying to line this up for a little while now, like at least a year, maybe two. We've been
I
WhatsApp
we've
buddies.
definitely we've been in communication for sure. And then also with the time difference this time, it was actually hit or miss. So
Yes, I know. Well, thank God you're where you are now. You have been all over the world at different points over the last couple of years when we've been chatting. But I'm
yeah.
so happy. You are one of my all-time favorites on the Below Deck franchise. And I say that as an OG fan. Like I was a day one fan from the very beginning. And, you were such a breath of fresh air joining Below Deck Down Under. So this is a big thrill for me.
Well, I'm really glad you say that because I do think that I am actually like Vegemite. Like you do either absolutely love me or really hate me. And I'm seeing that more and more, but at least you're a Vegemite lover.
Well, hey, I'm an Aussie. We love Vegemite. You would be very popular over here. Don't you worry.
Brilliant. Maybe I'll come to Australia.
Yes, you have spent a bit of time here, haven't you?
That's it. I had a client there, then I had a boyfriend there for a hot minute.
Nice.
Um, but the travel was too much to go back
Yeah.
and forth, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, you're a little bit
totally.
far.
We're right at the other end of the world. Doesn't make it that accessible. Unfortunately, you're here and you stay here, but it's not really a zip in and out kind of place. So,
My grandmother moved to Melbourne 50 years ago, never left.
really? Wow.
That's where
Yeah.
my grandmother is.
So you're Australian sort
I
of
love
by
it.
association.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess so. I definitely feel comfortable there. Like, I think English and Australian sense of humor are quite similar, and other places around the world, they don't quite get it. So,
Yeah. So true. So true. Now, I'm immediately going to all of the things that relates to about the current season of Below Deck Down Under and the hope you had working with someone from your own homeland. But before we launch into how you got to Below Deck, you had a really interesting life. You've been really vocal about growing up with ADHD and the different ways that you have managed symptoms over the years. And, I have a kid with ADHD, and I'm always really interested to hear about other people's journeys. It seems to be there's a, kind of generally one way of managing it these days. People talk about medication and, behavior management strategies and, executive function strategies, that sort of thing. But growing up in the 90s, things might have been a little bit different. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about your experience.
yeah, I mean, definitely growing up in the 90s is very different to now. And I have a very hippie mother. So she didn't want to medicate me, but throughout my childhood at school, like I could never understand why I couldn't just find like a group of friends and fit in. And for me, I found it really isolating. But I was tested for like the whole spectrum when I was quite young. And my mother told me I was dyslexic, but then she said that I used my dyslexia as an excuse so much that she didn't actually tell me I had ADHD. So throughout my childhood and teenage years, I always felt so isolated. Like, why aren't I like everyone else? Why am I so different? Started convincing myself that I was even like half alien or something because I could never really fit into a group. And because of that, and other children and people not being aware of my ADHD, even though it's probably very obvious, like I was isolated a lot.
Mm.
And there were times, as my mother was a teacher at my school, like I would even eat my lunch in my mum's classroom because I didn't feel like I could eat with the other children. And
Wow.
yeah, it was a really isolating time at school. And I do often say, and I had conversation with my mother about it, being like, why didn't you tell me? Because if I knew and knew the like the tools I could use to manage it, you know, and like, oh, this is why I'm a bit different. But I don't think my mum wanted me to like, walk into places like, hi, I have ADHD, because with ADHD, we don't really have much of a filter either,
Yeah.
you know? So I
Yes.
would just walk into places like, I can't do that because I'm dyslexic. And I don't think she wanted another
Yeah.
excuse, you know?
Yeah.
But when I found out I had ADHD, like the relief
Mhm.
of it. And I was actually in, I think, my mid later 20s, and everything started coming together. And the therapist that I have now has helped me through it so much in different tools, because I never understood why, like, I could only clean my bedroom if I had someone watching me, you
Mm.
know? And when anytime I'm packing a suitcase, I have to be like, okay, I need to FaceTime someone, because, and that's like body doubling. And
Yes.
it was learning different tools of like, okay, well, I have this, so I have to do this. And then also, like, I'm about to turn 33. And I think having a relationship with someone and having ADHD and knowing if they're the right person because of these excited, like, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin bursts of like, oh, they're the love of my life.
Yeah.
And then being like, oh, you're really not, you know. And then also well, the whole thing of ADHD people being more empathic,
Mhm.
and so we attract narcissistic personalities more. And so I just
Mm.
feel like I see a red flag, I'm like,
Run
bring
towards
them to
it.
me. And yeah, I really, really do. But like I'm learning more and more now of like, no, Zarina, just because that's a dopamine hit for you doesn't mean that's the right direction to go into. And it is almost like how addicts work with, you know, alcohol and drugs, because they need to have that hit. And it's a bit like that with toxic relationships and bad people as well. So I've been trying to be like very single for a very long time, which I have been for like a good 3 years now, and just making sure that anyone that I meet has to be like not this like ADHD, like fast go into it, like everything has to be step back, like have to really think. So
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be finding a husband soon, or wife.
Yeah.
And and it would be the something that's actually like a sensible relationship, and someone who can put up with the fact that I'm not medicated
Mm-hmm.
for my ADHD. I refuse to take tablets. I would rather do hypnotherapy, NLP therapy, and normal therapy to kind of put those, like, you know, the different programming in me instead of putting medicine inside my body.
Mm.
But
Fascinating.
yeah, have
Yeah.
you ever done any therapy before?
I've look a very good friend of mine is a hypnotherapist and does EMDR as well. And so I had a little go with her just to kind of try a few things. But I haven't fully done it, uh, with intention in an ongoing way. But I think it's a brilliant form of therapy, and I refer so many people to her, um, rather than to a psychologist or a traditional talk therapy person, because there's so much more you can do with EMDR and hypno, getting into the way the brain works. And again, same with NLP, and you touched on that just
Yeah.
before. So I'm so curious about how you find the management of your symptoms, um, how that works for you using NLP or hypno, or yeah.
Well, I think with the NLP therapy and hypnotherapy was more like to get over the trauma of what, you know, the person who I was when I was younger with all the bullying and everything. And
Mm.
then going into like the realization of like what your new life is, and helping, you know, dispose of, you know, that part of your brain where you react to things in a certain way and don't realize it's from trauma.
Yeah.
You know, even watching myself on the show, I'm like, God, I've done so much work with therapy and hypnotherapy, spent so much money on that sort of thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's just still not going to 100% go away. I still see my tics, but I guess in such a pressure cooker, like below deck, like
Yes.
that is the time where everything's going to come out. But yeah,
Yeah.
I still notice it now. but in my everyday life, it's so much better,
It's
you know. But
interesting. Yeah, I was just going to say it's interesting you mentioned that because there were a few things I saw so far, and I'm one episode behind because I committed to watching Married at First Sight, and I'm doing a weekly podcast about that, and that is half your life gone to Married at First Sight. It's hours and hours and hours and hours every week. So I'm a little bit
I
behind
love
with.
it. I've applied for it and they didn't take me. I was like, well, I'm in a good place. I want to generally find a husband. And
Wow.
I basically like told them like deepest, darkest secrets in the video I had to put in and be like, this is why, you know, like I really need help because the average Joe like
Yeah.
won't really, you know, take me once they get to know me, you know?
Oh
And
my
I'm just
God,
like, could
don't
you set
say
up
that.
I mean, like, I've had lots of heartbreak, but
Yeah.
I just if they like set up the perfect
Yeah.
person for like my neurodivergent brain,
Yeah.
you know, then maybe that would be sway. But yeah, they didn't even reply.
Well,
I
you know,
think they
they
think because
are
of like just
casting for
because
next year at the moment here in Australia. I wonder if you should throw your
you
hat
think they're
back in.
taking English person.
Maybe. Why not? You're a star. You bring in already a platform, you know. Could be
Yeah,
interesting.
maybe I'll ask my personal assistant, being like, because I really want to find a husband. I really do.
Yeah. But you know, I see, first of all, there's a few things I want to say. And I'm probably undiagnosed ADHD too. The pediatrician is frequently saying to me, now where does this come from in your son? I'm thinking you. Um, so, you know, that's fine. But, you know, so my brain goes to 10 different directions at the same time when you've said something. So bear with me. But the first thing I want to say is you're saying I've had lots of heartbreak. And, you know,
Mm.
that is what every single person's story is until they find the one. Otherwise, you know, the journey's over. We all have to have all of that heartbreak and then we find the person, you know, because
That's
it
true.
just means you haven't found the person yet, but it doesn't mean that they're not coming, you know. And I think I was like you. I don't think I found my person until I was 33, 34. And
Oh, so you're saying this is my year?
this is your year, baby. This is like Saturn return. This is like the big life moment. I feel like so much happens at 33 and you know, there's so much coming your way and you are completely lovable and you deserve everything and that little person inside you that feels rejected and lonely, you know, she's part of you, but she's not that you're not defined by her. You know, you bring so much more to the table. And of course, an average Joe could handle your neurodiversity. Just, you know, you don't need the assholes that can't
Yeah,
handle
I
it,
know.
you
I know.
know?
And those are my tips as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've all got to kiss those frogs. You know, I spent a good 8 years
I
doing that, you know, before I found this one and it can sometimes feel absolutely like it's never going to end and no one's ever going to love you and it's just not going to happen for you. And I certainly felt that so many times over my single years, but you just have to keep believing that that person is coming because they are,
know.
you
I think
know?
as well, like being in the public eye, a lot of people think that, you know, I am the person on the screen, you
Yeah.
know, but in reality, like I'm actually very, very boring. You know, like I'm probably gonna do a different podcast. No, I'm probably gonna do a different podcast about it, but like I also have a disease which I've had since I was 9 years old.
Mhm.
And it's made it so basically I can't have children. I've actually never said that publicly before.
Wow.
But so with like finding a man around my age, it's like always going to be the first thing I have to be like, it's like, hey, this is me, but you can't have children with me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been like the hardest thing in the dating game for the last 3 years of like those first dates. I just get it out of the way straight away, being like, this is something I'm never going to be able to give to you. You know, and also because
Wow.
I live with this disease, like I'm fatigued all the time. Like I don't even know how I did the show half the time,
Yeah.
but I did it. And that was my ADHD superpower. You
Yes.
know, the fact that, you know, you run off that adrenaline, you run off that excitement, and it gets you through those 20-hour days, you know.
Yeah.
with a lot of drops in it as well on the nights out when you go a bit
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, it was. I definitely, I think for ADHD, doing a show like Below Deck, like you kind of have to have that superpower to push you and keep you going because the hours are insane and the pressure is crazy.
Well, that's right. Watching the show, just as a viewer, I've never worked on a boat. I've never worked on a plane. I've never worked, in a tight environment like that where it's 20 or, anything where it's 24/7. I haven't worked at a camp or like I go to my job and I come home. I've worked in hospitality, worked in bars, all of that. So I get a whisper of that pressure in that service industry. But what you
It's insane.
endure 24/7, and I'm sure it's different in the real yachting world. It's probably much more intense in the TV variety, but you
Um,
just seem like you are and especially the chef. It's usually just you. On this season you had a sous chef briefly, potentially another one coming. Um, but it's an environment that I don't think many people could manage from a mental health perspective, from a physical, energetic perspective. So you've
yeah.
got that ADHD superpower, but how else do you manage?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky with Below Deck for the fact that the producers in between charters let me have therapy. So they would
Amazing.
find a quiet spot, take my microphone off, and I would be allowed to have therapy. And it was like very like religious of me, like guests go off, I clean down, I go do my therapy, and without my therapist, I wouldn't be able to get through the season. But it's watching myself this season, it's actually like giving me anxiety because I know what I was feeling, the pressure that I was under. And the the galley had no windows. It was all stainless steel and the air conditioning didn't really work and the heat in there. So without any like clean air and the stainless steel, like I kept every morning going, saying, I'm going back to the prison
Yeah.
and being in there cooking nonstop for 20 hours a day with the boat rocking, like I could just see my head spinning and like my
Yeah.
feet were bleeding because I was so swollen from the heat. I couldn't put my feet in shoes. And I'd be like, all the public are like, you're so disgusting. You've got bare feet in the kitchen. I'm like, yeah, I was actually the one who had to go to the doctors afterwards with a foot infection. Like
Wow.
I couldn't even get my foot in my like what those German shoes called? You know, the
Birkenstocks?
the Birkenstock slide-ins, like even that, the corners of them were like putting
Oh,
blisters around my feet because you're 20 hours on your feet, in
wow.
heat, swollen, sweating, and like every morning I'd just be like almost shaking, going in, being like, okay, I'm going to push through today. I'm going to push through today. It
Oh,
was that galley was the hardest galley I've ever worked in. So I think again, like then going out and then seeing the crew and getting to talk and having some drinks and then my dopamine being spiked and needing the oxytocin,
mm,
my cortisol, I think, was actually probably about like at 24 or something, like the whole time, just spiked, spiked, spiked. And being like, okay, I need to get love. Like I need to hold someone, I need to kiss someone, that's when the ADHD obsessiveness comes into it. So I'm watching myself through like now studying mental health and NLP myself, like and knowing a lot more about how the brain works. I'm seeing it more like a documentary instead of a reality TV show.
yeah.
you know, look at the animal in like lots
Yes.
of this kitchen. So
Yes.
yeah, but it was
Wow.
definitely like one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I'm just really proud that I did it. Because especially with like all odds against you, like I still powered through that season.
Wow.
So
I mean, just the feet alone, I think any woman can relate to wearing a terrible pair of shoes and being stuck in them all night at a party or a
I
wedding or something and hobbling
know.
and almost feeling feverish with pain because of your feet. I cannot imagine doing that for 20 hours a day for as long
No,
as you
it
were there.
was. Yeah, I think actually like maybe four more episodes because my feet began to get harder on the bottom,
Hmm.
just because, being barefoot and stuff. So I think I started managing to like wrap my feet up and put them in shoes.
Oh my
And it was like
God.
still, and every time Captain goes like, get into your shirts, it means that we had to like go up into the into like different areas and different clothing, but we have to wear shoes to like go and meet the charter guests. And every time I'd be sliding my foot in, like, oh
Oh,
my Lord,
oh
this
my
hurts.
God.
Like I was like, oh my God, this hurts so much. And it is like, you know, the night out when you wear that favorite pair of stilettos and after 3 hours you regret it, but your outfit
Yes.
looks so good.
Yes, absolutely. But you're hobbling from like, seat to bar. You're not working in a kitchen feeding people at the standard that you have to, as well as all of the crew. I mean, do you also have to feed the production crew or,
No,
oh, that's good.
they're all
Okay.
sorted out. Like they are very much like you don't notice that they're there.
Okay.
You really, really don't. It's
Okay.
they are literally like this fourth wall. You just see camera people going around sometimes, and all there's cameras obviously in the ceilings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I promise you, after your first 20 minutes on that boat, you don't notice them, you
Wow.
know.
But I guess it would be hard as well. I imagine when I think about myself being in that position or any role working on that boat. First of all, for me, having to be around people 24/7 and not be able to really get much time on your own to decompress, I just don't think I would survive longer than a week just because of that. But then such high pressure and the dynamics to navigate and, sexual tension and the little boatmancers and things like that you've got to navigate as well as hierarchy, as well as guests to serve. I mean,
No, I
there's
know.
so much.
It's so much. I think that's why the show's so great, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know, because it's not normal. But thing is, that is the yachting industry. You know,
right.
I've been on boats that have so much crazier charter guests, crazier crew, and I've been on them thinking, "Fuck, we need to put some cameras in here." You
Wow.
know, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's the yachting industry is insane, and I've been trying to push for so long that we need background checks because you don't know who's working on your boat with you and you just go to sea. But
Mhm.
also, I feel like the owners of these yachts should be paying for mandatory every 2 weeks therapy for 1 hour for each crew member. Forced. You have to do it. Because even if
Yes.
you think you're fine, like you're not, that is not a normal way of living.
No.
You know, and even like the engineer, you know, from Scotland who'd be like, oh, I don't need therapy. You do.
Yeah.
You do, because as soon as you step off that boat, what do? You go to a bar.
Yep.
Like you need it, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think that there needs to be more people looking out for crew members. And like I've always said that, like below deck with like they offer us therapy. We
Hmm.
have HR, and because there's cameras all around us, it's literally yachting with guardian angels around you, just looking in, making sure that no, there's no harm done to you,
Yes.
you know? When
Yes.
in the real yachting world, like we don't have that. We're not safe.
Wow. You have spoken out a bit about safety in yachting. I
Mm.
think you did a podcast last year talking about some of those issues. Have you had much of a response from the industry about speaking out?
So when my first season came out, I had a petition going, and I think I got something like 20,000 signatures. And I won't mention the name of it, but the place that you submit it to basically just laughed at me, and that was just to get back on yachts because a captain had put my friend into hospital by yeah, broken ribs, sexually assaulted, everything. And
Oh,
yeah, he actually finally went to trial down the road about 20 minutes away about a few weeks ago, and he got let off. And he'd
oh,
also done it to, I think, 7 other women. And he's just a
wow.
captain that, you know, he sexually assaults, he gets arrested, he gets away with it, then he just jumps to another boat as a captain and he goes to another country. You know, so now there's just
Unbelievable.
countries he can't go into, but look how many countries there are around the world. Like he can just keep going and keep going. And like, I want to know if I'm safe when I go work on a boat, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah. Because it's captain's law, isn't it? Once you're on the boat out in the ocean, everything
Yeah,
comes under the captain, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
And it's so important that you have a good captain because so many of them get such a God complex, And interestingly enough, it's like I do often wonder like what I would be like with that power, because a lot of the people who have become captains are the ones that were bullied at school, are the ones that didn't do well, and then suddenly they realize, oh, I can go work on a boat and get my certificates within 3 4 years, and then suddenly like I'm running the shop now. And I do often wonder if I actually have a similar personality type, that if I got given that power, how would I react? You know,
Mm.
it's,
There's that empathy.
I might not be a good person,
Yeah.
and it's more understanding what's around you and the way that people think.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's getting quite dark in here. I don't know if I can throw a light.
Look at that
Uh,
beautiful Floridian backdrop.
yeah, I know, but it's getting darker and I don't know where the light switch is. I'll
I
just get
think,
really close.
yeah, just come close. Beautiful. Wow. I mean, we did see a little snapshot of something that happened on season 2 of Below Deck. And I think that's sort of when the conversation, and we won't go into detail, but obviously there was an incident with a crew member who was trying to take advantage of somebody who was inebriated. And it seemed like the crew and the production crew jumped in and stopped that from happening. But as you say, in the real world, there is no protection. There's nothing to stop someone coming into your cabin or bailing you up somewhere. And I'm shocked to think that there is no protection. I mean, yeah, in any other industry, you could, you know, oh,
Yeah,
well,
we
yeah,
do have like some boats have management companies and the safe person ashore, but the
okay.
captain is always in the pocket of that person.
Mm.
And I actually left a boat about a year and a half ago that was in West Palm Beach because the captain was working us way, way too hard. Like we were in yard, like the girls are crying, the boys were fainting and passing out from sunstroke. And
God,
his motto was, if like, well, if you don't, if you can't handle it, it's not a prison, fuck off. That was his motto.
wow.
And one of the days, one of the girls who was just so exhausted was crying in the crew mess, being like, should I contact the safe person ashore? And the captain heard and went, oh, yeah, he's my best mate. If you write him an email, I'll print it out and we'll have it like read it over beers and laugh about how stupid it is. And I'm just like, oh,
Wow.
so we're not actually safe, you know? And
Wow.
that's how they get away with it. Like, but there is someone you can talk to, but there isn't. You
Wow.
know?
Wow. Okay, we are back with Chef
Yeah.
Zarina.
New location.
New location. That's right. So we were talking about safety in yachting, and I guess I was wondering, how would young people going into the industry be able to protect themselves, or can they just not? And is it just a really risky industry?
I just I think it's always been a risky industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that it's coming to light more now. It's getting more popular.
Mm-hmm.
And not enough people talk about it because you get very gaslit when you go onto boats and they give you like this mentality of like, if you can't handle these hours, then you're not good enough for yachting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so a lot of these young boys and stuff and girls are coming in like, well, I can handle it. It's like, no, you're burning yourself out and these aren't right working conditions.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time as well, when I voiced about things that have happened on boats and stuff, in bars to other people in the yachting community, I often have like a young South African boy turn to me like, oh, you're just not made for yachting, then are you? It's like,
Mm.
yeah, I'm so sorry that I don't want to get sexually assaulted this
Yeah.
week. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's such a
Yeah.
me problem,
It is such a,
like
you're
it's,
so pathetic. Oh my God.
yeah. Oh my
Seriously.
God. Like, I love working 20 hours a day without a day off for a weekend for 6 months. Like,
Yeah.
that's my favorite thing to do,
Yeah.
but it is just fast paced money and they called it the golden handcuffs,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
only work with like specific and particular people now. I'm really careful about what boats I do. And I have my good owners like in my pocket as well that they know that they can call me whenever they need me. So,
Great. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
you have that luxury of having had the experience and having been in the industry longer and being able to see
Yeah.
what's safe and what's not. So it's quite shocking. And I think with the success of Below Deck, there would probably be more young people wanting to get into it, thinking it's a
Yeah,
glamorous
they do.
industry and lots of money and all of that, the travel. But this is obviously the dark side. And in other industries,
Yeah,
there would be a union potentially like regulating hours or, background
yeah. I
checks at
mean,
the very least.
the thing is, like, a there's a union called Naughty where, like, if someone has been sexually assaulted or you are being overworked, then you can go and you pay like a yearly subscription to them.
Hmm.
Um, but of a lot of the time, like, they have been good to a lot of people that I know, and I'm actually with them as well.
Hmm.
Um, but like through the management companies, there's protection, but again, it doesn't really work because at the end of the day, you can't really go against your captain.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they're all in the back pocket of each other, how can you
Yeah,
really have a safe space? So
yeah.
I guess you have to just keep talking to each other and keep sharing these stories, and hopefully, young people listening will find ways to support each other.
Yeah, I think so. I think that also most people that go into the yachting industry are running away from something.
Mm,
It's not exactly like the lifestyle that someone actually really, really wants.
hmm.
You dedicate your life to another person.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that they are happy.
Yeah.
And so I think that people who go into it, like I feel like everyone in yachting has a story about
Mm,
why they aren't at home,
yeah.
and it's not just the money. Well, it could be for the money, but still, like, it's because you can't get qualifications or settled anywhere else, and this is your only option,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting that the population is not necessarily a broad population. It's a type of person potentially that.
I think so. I think
Mm,
so. Like, it is a good place to run away to, but I think once you're in it for over 2, 3 years, you actually begin to realize how toxic it is. Like, I've been in the industry for 7 years now.
wow.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm considered old in the industry. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
No, it is a scary thing is it can be amazing as well. It
Mm,
depends on what your experience is. Like I have friends who are very, very happy on their boats, but now getting to the stage of being like, oh, I want to have a child with my wife, but I'm not going to be able to see her for half the year.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Really tough.
It's
How did,
it's it's a life choice.
yeah, exactly. And I suppose, yeah, I never thought of that in terms of captains, and Captain Lee was always talking about his wife and all of that, but I guess you truly are away from home more often than you're home, probably. So that's so
Yep.
tough on
Yeah.
relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, like I know captains who have, they have 2-2 rotation and they run back to be with their wife who's just giving birth, but they can only
Mm.
be there for 2 months and have to go back for 2 months. So then you just
Wow.
left your wife with a newborn for 2 months. Then you only see them every year for 2 months.
Wow. I can't even
Mm.
imagine. So hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you actually get into this industry?
Um, I I had my eye on it when I started high-end ski season. So I think I was probably about 24 years old. But I was always told that to do yachting, like you have to be the elite chef, like you have to be amazing, it's 7-star service and everything. So I decided to kind of keep getting trained and going to different places and kind of climbing up the ladder. So I went from like high-end ski chalets to like private households to traveling private chef. When I got to that stage, my one of my bosses had I think 23 houses around the world and 3 yachts.
Whoa.
And so I traveled with that person. And then I noticed that I used to go on to the bigger yachts and their chef would become my sous chef.
Wow.
But then none of the other crew would speak to me. So, when you go into the crew area and everyone's there eating, I would go downstairs, but everyone would be like, no, she's in the boss's pocket. And
Oh.
I would have a guest cabin close to my boss because obviously the crew cabins are taken up. And so no one trusted me. And I was actually at that time approaching 30 years old. And I was like, well, I don't want to, like, in 3 years' time, be dedicated to my boss and have no friends, and be on my 30th birthday being like, okay, well, I've got money, but I have no friends and no life. Because
Yeah.
when I do a job, like I give it 100 million%, like I give it everything, classic ADHD, like until I burn out.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically decided to quit that job. I think I had a different job in between with an ex-girlfriend for a little bit, which was similar but a bit smaller. And I kind of decided after we broken up that it was probably the best idea for me to start the yachting industry.
Mm.
And the first boat I was ever on, so it must have been like 26, 27. I like I think two of those people were at my 30th birthday.
Wow.
You know, along with all the other people that I met in the yachting the 3 years after that. And I wasn't alone on my 30th birthday, which was
Mm.
like from not having friends at school to then, you know, going to the surf retreat and doing that and being around people, but never quite felt like I fit in, to like finally finding the industry where like I could find friends,
Yeah.
you know, because I've always dedicated myself so much to my work that I often realize that like I don't have that tight friend group. And when I do, my friends are scattered all over the world now.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, you watch movies and you're like, oh my God, those girls are branching together and they've known each other for
Yeah.
10 years. Like, I will never have that unless I start now. You know,
Yes.
like my five best girl mates all around the world will probably never beat it unless I get married.
Yes. Oh my God. I guess that's a sort of byproduct of that transient life as well, just, you're got a different girl in every port, so to speak.
There we go.
But it
But
is
no,
interesting
it's
as well because I think that traditionally, being a chef, you are sort of separated from, even on yachts,
related.
you are isolated all the time. So even in your industry, although you're now, part of a crew and more included than when you were doing that, private work, it's still a job where you're on your own and you don't
Yes.
always have a teammate and the rest of them they all have each other and I just feel like it would be
Yeah.
such a hard gig, you know?
It is. It's there's always a joke that like the engineers and the chef come out at the end of the day, like, is that air? You know, like because we've just been locked in a room for so long. But I also
Yeah.
feel like, you know, being isolated from friends and stuff basically my whole life, and like having very quick friends and relationships. You know, when you go and do something like below deck and, you know, you're forced to be friends with these people when I'm very neurodivergent. And then, you know, I've been locked in a room for so many hours and I come out and it's like, be friends. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm very socially awkward. So my style with my ADHD is just to go, "Blah!" You know, like I'm even
Mm,
more crazy. Like I'm the craziest person here. It's almost like peacocking. Like, is this what you want? You
yeah.
know, to then go back into my hole, like, oh
Yeah.
God. You know, like every night when I go to sleep, I'm always like, oh my God, Zoran, I can't believe you said that. Did you
Oh,
do that? Like my brain doesn't shut off as I'm just
yes.
like, just
Yeah.
eating melatonin like it's Maltesers.
Go to sleep. Turn off the brain.
Yeah, it's literally, I think even last night my brain was like, God, when I was 12 years old, when that girl said that to me, this is the comeback. Now I've got it.
Oh
Like, let's message her.
no. Yeah.
Like,
Find her on Facebook and send her
yeah,
that
literally, like,
message.
what's her name again? Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I've got that comeback now, mate.
Oh my God. But that is exhausting. That is such a hard way to be because I understand that, I do all of that overthinking and, probably masking
Mm,
as well. And, you probably just when you're in that situation, let go of the mask. And because you've been so confined and hyper focused on the job to then come out, you of course you need to just explode. It's like kids coming home at the end of the day from school. They've been
yeah.
contained and following the rules and sitting and behaving and doing all of the things and listening and learning, and they come home and they have a meltdown and they're loud and destructive and crazy because they have to be. So I just kind of got
Yeah.
that little image of you in a similar way. But I do think you're too hard on yourself, honestly.
probably the ADHD as well. The
Yeah.
constant voices in my head. Yeah, I mean, you when you put yourself out there publicly, like there's always going to be someone to say something. Like something I noticed like last season with everything going on, the biggest feedback I had from the public was, you need to stick up for yourself, you need to be harder, like, don't let people walk all over you. So I came into this season like all that behind me, like I'm sticking up for myself this season, then I stick up for myself and people are like, you're horrible, and I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah, no,
Literally,
you
like,
can't
because
win.
like I listen to the viewers, I listen, like I take it in, like, I I absorb what people say. It
Yeah.
means so much to me when people reach out. Like I listen, like I'm a human, I'm still learning. It's like taking advice, you know
Yes.
and I know
But
Jason will probably be like, stop listening to people. I'm like, but I care.
yes. But it is a really tricky thing. And I think anybody in the public eye, anyone on TV has to deal with a certain level of trolling. And I don't
Yeah,
know that those people will always have your best interests at heart. They're all
I
those keyboard
know.
warriors that have an opinion and think they know you, that parasocial relationship. I mean, you and I have been best friends in my mind for the last like 3 years. So I feel like I can say this
we
to you.
are we are best friends.
But I feel like that would be a really hard thing to manage, is all of that kind of public commentary of being
Yeah.
someone well known.
Yeah, I have to. My first season, I didn't get a lot. It was actually a really good season for me, but this time the trolling has actually got to my head a bit, and I've
Mm-hmm.
actually upped my therapy now,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. And then I was kind of changing into like the state of mind of like, my gosh, what must that person be going through if they feel like they can just reach out to a stranger and think that these things are real, and and like feel like they have to like stop what they're doing their day to message something like that. Like these are the people that actually need the mental health checks,
Yeah.
and like quite often I'll do a post if I've been getting like a lot of bullying online, being like, are people okay? This is my therapist contact, like for me, I would never reach out and do that to any stranger or anyone. And like,
Yeah.
they feel like they really, really know you, and they're watching this small edited version of who you are. And they get, it angers them so much that they have to say something so mean. I'm like, wow, what has happened to you?
Yeah.
To make you feel like you have to do that. And then it's more coming into like a empathetic side, and like reading the bad comments, thinking like, okay, you need to come back with like empathy for this.
Mm. Yeah.
You never know what someone's going through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a healthy perspective, because that is not a well person who is
Yeah.
really happy and secure and, feeling grounded in their life. This is, what
Yeah.
is missing in their life, or what has happened to them that they feel like they can
Yeah.
attack you for something they're watching on
Yeah.
TV. I mean,
I
I'm
know.
I'm the first one to admit I get ragey and I get affected by the shows, and I'm invested in the people on my screen and I have opinions. But there's a very big difference between healthy debate and discussion and all of that, and somebody just walked past in the background if you're listening, and not
It's okay.
watching.
I think it's just security. They're like, who's
Okay.
this crazy lady up in here? We want to close for the night.
Oh no. But yeah, look, it is very different, yeah, to actually then take action and try to do harm to somebody. And I think people forget that the person on the other end of Instagram is a real person with real feelings and can very much be affected
Yeah.
by what is written when it's directed immediately to you.
Yeah,
It's not like
absolutely.
an article you're reading about
Yeah,
yourself. It's a
and
comment
it is
directly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's really personalized. But I've got into like a habit now with like my personal assistant as well, that if it's something like someone's continuously doing it and it's quite mean, we just block and report them, and then contact Instagram and get their pages shut down. So it's
Great.
like, so that's like my kind of like come on then, let's get your page shut down. Like, you really want to do this? Like, I'm not going to fight back.
Yep. Amazing. Take that on notice, people. No
Yeah.
online trolling. Chef Tzarina's going to come and get you.
Yeah, I think Instagram are probably like, this girl again, Jesus Christ. Okay, just send the list. And I'm like, dear Instagram. Like, I say I do it, but I'm just like, personal assistant, do you mind doing it for me?
Yes. But that's like that's a healthy boundary. And I know a few people who are in the public eye who do the same thing, block, delete, don't even give them
Mm,
another chance. And that's it, you know.
yeah.
You wouldn't do it in real
The
life to someone.
I know. I actually had the nicest reach out a few weeks ago. And I told Captain Jason about it because it literally filled my heart. But this young girl, I think 18 years old, and we just got chatting a bit. She wrote to me basically being like, just to let you know, I find you really inspirational. I have autism. And
Mm.
like, this is what you've done to help me and watching you and what you've been able to do. And I'm like, that's why I do it,
Wow.
is to give these like young people who are also like neurodivergent, like to be like, if I can do it with everything that I've been through, like you can also do something amazing,
Yes.
and it's kind of like the concept of what I want my cooking show to be as well, is like having that mixed into it. So fingers crossed I get an
Amazing.
investor.
Amazing. We definitely need more of you. And, I think maybe that's why you were such a standout from your first season, from the very beginning, because you do just seem like you are just
Mm,
being yourself. You don't feel like you're putting on a show, you're not trying to be anything that you're not. And I think everybody can relate to the things that
yeah.
you're showing, like even just the little comments, like there was a scene this season where you jumped into the arms of the bosun and this little voice came out of you like, am I heavy? And I just like a little piece of me was like, I know that feeling. I know that thought. And you're saying the things out loud
Yeah.
that we are all thinking and feeling, and you're wearing your vulnerability on your sleeve. And I think that's something to be so
Mm.
proud of.
Well, thank you, because every single new job I go into, and especially below deck, I go, like, Tzarina, you're going to be normal. You're going to have your mouth shut. You're going to be professional. Like, and I say, like, you're not going to be weird. You're not going to be weird. And as soon as I step into a new environment with new people, and I do this even before going to dinners, like, don't be weird tonight, Tzarina. And I get there and I'm like, like, start licking windows and being like, anal, like why did I say that? Why did I do that? And that night I'm just lying in bed like you couldn't, not even 1 minute, Sarina, not even one
Yeah.
minute. So it's like
Yeah.
I can't just, I've been trying all my life to be someone else and I just can't do it.
And
And
you know what?
I've also always wished that I would be someone else, but with my new therapist I've had for the last 6 years, I say new, but she's my one and only one now, but she's been teaching me to basically love myself and who I am instead of wishing that I was someone else, because
Yeah.
until like birth till 27 I just always wished I was someone else.
Mm, it just breaks my
Mm.
heart. It breaks my heart. And you know what? I think it's a really common story. I think, particularly with undiagnosed kids, and technically you were undiagnosed
Yeah.
because you didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But an undiagnosed child with ADHD, I think it has experienced something like 20,000 negative interactions by the time they're in year two because
Yeah.
they're too much or they're too loud, and it's the
Yeah.
teacher. Sit back in your chair, pay attention,
Yeah.
look at
don't
me,
don't
focus.
embarrass me. Like,
Don't
are
do
you going to
that.
behave for once in your life?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. So it's coming from
um,
parents, it's coming from, and I'm guilty of that myself, the frustration with a hyperactive, impulsive child, is really, really challenging. But from
I
teachers, from
was a biter.
friends, were you? So
I
you
Yeah,
would
I
have got
was a
it from
biter.
everywhere, from
Yeah,
everywhere.
I remember my mum picking me up from kindergarten. There's a kid crying because there was a bite mark on the middle of their
Oh,
forehead because I just grabbed them and
yeah.
locked my whole jaw in. Because I think for ADHD, it's actually a jaw thing. It's like a
Mm.
tension, right? That
Mm-hmm.
bitey thing. So I used to have like little bits of wood I used to bite my teeth into.
Yeah. Yeah. And we understand so
Someone's
much
gonna love
more of it.
me.
Oh, so many people are going to love you. You are going to have your pick. And I think the more authentic you are And the more you just let go of those masks and be yourself, like
Yeah.
the right person is going to see all of that and just love it. You
I
know,
hope so. I'm
I'm
ready.
sure of
Married at
it.
first sight. Find them for
Yes.
me.
Oh my God. Nothing wrong with an arranged marriage, you know?
No,
Work.
really. Like, I mean, my mother's Jewish, and I'm just like, the one thing you could have done is at least set me up with someone that would be forced to love me. Like, that's the one thing you could have done, mummy. And then you didn't. You're like, no, you have to find your true love. God,
Oh, a
like,
bit of
find me
help,
a
mum.
husband.
Bit of help. Well, Jewish matchmaking. Maybe they'll make another season on Netflix. Maybe you need to apply there.
I know.
At
I
least
know. I'm a little
the
bit too
right
much.
parent is Jewish, so you're in.
No, this is true. This is
Yeah.
true. This is
Yeah.
very true. Apply, I go.
So, look, what is coming up for you next? You mentioned a cooking show and hoping for investors. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I don't really want to give away too many of my ideas, but it's been
Okay.
something I've actually been kind of working on for a year and a half now. And the business plan will hopefully be done in the next 6 months or less. I actually had a phone call this morning about it with videographers and stuff like that, and just hoping to get the pilot done.
Amazing.
But yeah, it's going to be something that's like very unique to me and never been done, and basically bringing people together through love and food and mental health and all the fun
Mm.
stuff that I love. So every little thing of
Amazing.
like, I'm going to say my brands because I have ADHD. I can't pick one brand that I am. It's basically going to be like
Yeah.
everything that I'm passionate about, hopefully in a cooking show, which would be incredible.
Wow.
But I'm going to Mexico on Sunday. I booked it yesterday morning. I just, with
Nice.
everything with below deck at the moment, I just thought, my phone won't work there because of the internet and stuff, and it'd just be good to clock out for 3 days. And then I might be coming back on a Thursday, going on a yacht to the Bahamas, working for 4 weeks maybe, and
Wow.
then come back, move into my new place. And then Chef Anthony and I are planning a big event. As in not
Wow.
Anthony sous chef, Anthony from OG, good Anthony. And
Okay.
yeah,
I was going
so
to
yeah.
say, oh my God, Tzarina, what are we doing here?
I mean, no, I have nothing against the guy. Again,
Yeah.
he's an edited version of himself. He's a
True.
fantastic, phenomenal chef. He really is. There was just a personality clash. Like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to take away from that guy that he wasn't incredible at cooking, because he's great.
Amazing.
Unfortunately, he just took that away from me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. See,
So,
again, look how beautiful you are.
mm,
Look how beautiful you are. Like
uh,
it's lovely to hear you talk like that. To be so generous about somebody else and just it's lovely. Really lovely.
I think that when you do something like below deck, though, like, it is kind of good to try and stick together, which is going to be very contradictory to. You can't put this in, but a lot happens, and a lot of the crew members and I don't talk, but you have to cut that out. But
Okay.
it's like, my first season of the show, like, I speak to every single person still. Well,
Amazing.
the finishing crew, obviously not the people apart from
Yeah.
Adam, but
Okay.
yeah, like, you go into something so incredible that people would only envy of, and you put every single part of your heart, body, and soul into something for the whole world to see. And
Mm.
those people should try and stick together, because you're going through something that no one else has gone through, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we can, as viewers, put ourselves in your shoes to the tiniest extent. But it's like you guys are trauma bonded in a way that nobody else will understand.
You said it.
Uh, yeah. So, okay. So you've got some exciting things coming up. Um,
Yeah.
where should people follow you to keep up with your life and what's happening?
I think just, yeah, my Instagram, Chef Tzarina. I deleted my TikTok and everything. I'm trying to keep everything a lot more simple. But also, recipe wise, I might in the next few months be having a YouTube cooking channel coming out with full recipes and stuff like that as well. Something I've been slowly working on, but it's still all in editing.
Okay.
So, and
Amazing.
that's the actual recipes written down, because I know that people always ask me for them, but you have to pay for my recipes. They're mine. Okay. I'm not
Absolutely.
giving away for free on my Instagram. I give so much of
No.
myself. I need to get a bit of return sometimes. I need to buy a house at some point.
Yep.
So
Very clever. Very clever. You got to have a plan. We can't
yeah, so
give
yeah, I
it all
think
away.
exciting things coming up. I had a big drop the last 2 weeks with like I think definitely my depression and everything kicked in. Like I definitely suffer from depression, always have.
Hmm.
But it's like I've managed to find my way out that dark hole in the last like 44 hours or something and just like,
Wow.
okay, got some strength back now. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So
Yeah. Well, I can imagine watching yourself back because it's many, many, many months later, right? You filmed this a long time ago.
yeah, ages ago.
Yeah.
This is another thing because like it brings it all back as well. And you're like, God,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Nobody can understand what you all go through. It's not just the filming and the experience, but then
yeah.
it's reliving it when it finally goes to air, whenever the network
Yeah.
decides to air
It's
it.
just a lot.
So yeah, it's a huge amount from a mental health perspective to go
Yeah.
through. So I'm not surprised that the show started
They do
airing and
offer a therapist though while you're still under contract. So while it's airing,
fantastic.
like right now, I could message them being like, "Hey, this season's really tough. Can you give me your therapist?" And they'll set it up.
Amazing. I just want to say I'm so grateful for you being so open and vulnerable and sharing so much of your experience with us here. And I cannot wait to see what comes next. I can't wait to see the love of your life walk into your arms. And this next decade, you are just going to be flying, girl. I can see it.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Time to make my own success. So
Yeah. Well, you're well on
a
the
lot of
way.
pressure.
Yeah. No, you
Yeah,
got
fingers
this.
crossed. Thank you so much. Thank you
Oh,
so much for having me.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
being on the show. And I can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you. Thank you so much.